a consultancy in product management and also a community builder. And as a community builder, we organize these weekly meetups where we invite experts in product field to talk and share their insights. And always happy to see returning guests and new guests. If you like what we do, we are very happy for your support at Patreon, because the events are always for free, but we do need some money to pay for the proper tools to create these events in a best way possible. You're also welcome to join our community chat at Get Product People in Telegram, where we just discuss all the questions on product and sometimes post the ads looking for people or looking for jobs. As a product people consultancy, we help companies to build better product faster. And as our team is currently growing, we're, by the way, a remote first international team. As our team is currently growing, we are open for new projects. So if you are looking for interim product manager, if you know a company that is looking for one, or you need some additional external help with your product topics, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Also, before we start, I wanted to thank our recent, quite new patron on the Patreon, Richard. Thank you very much for supporting us. By the way, Richard is organizing something else to give back to the community. He is leading the peer coaching group called Product Peers. If you're here, Richard, he's not, I guess, at the moment, but maybe he comes back. He's usually a regular attendee of our events. Or you can also Google for Product Peers and find out about this. It's a non-profit, so I'm not getting any money for this advertisement. With this, I will stop talking and we'll invite our guest that we are very happy to have on here today, Jim Semick, co-founder of ProductPlan, to talk about product market fit, which is apparently a very interesting topic. As I see already, we keep having a growing number of guests coming. So Jim, please introduce yourself and just let's dive into this topic.
Sure, great. Thank you, Victoria. It's great to be here today, and I'm coming to you from the United States in Seattle, Washington, and it's my morning, so you'll see that I'm still drinking coffee. And I'm very much looking forward to talking with you about product market fit, what it means for both smaller early stage companies, which I've been a part of for the last 20 years, as well as for existing companies, and what you can do as a product manager within an organization to find product market fit, either for a product or for a new service or for a very large feature that you'll be releasing. And I'll talk about a process that you can use for that. But before we start, I'll give a little more background on myself. I've been in product management now for over 20 years, and I'm currently co-founder of a company called ProductPlan. We build web-based product roadmap software, and we have product managers throughout the world using our software to help plan their releases in their software. So we help tackle the product roadmap problem that a lot of product managers have with easy to use visual product roadmap software. In my career, I've taken several software products from the blank sheet of paper, from an early stage concept, all the way through to a successful market launch. Previously, I was on the founding team of a company called AppFolio, which is a B2B software as a service company here in California. And that company recently is now publicly traded, and as at the time was one of the large unicorns that they call software companies that reached the $1 billion US threshold. Before that, I wrote the product requirements for GoToMeeting, GoToMyPC, GoToWebinar, and those products. And very proud of the products and the teams that I've been a part of. And I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about my general philosophy when it comes to product management, to building products, building successful products, and the market validation process that you can go through to validate whether what you're going to be building for customers will actually solve problems. And so my philosophy is this: make better mistakes and make them faster. And by doing that, by making better mistakes faster, you can learn early and make a product that has a better fit in the market without spending a lot of time and resources. And so I'll talk about a process that I use today to launch ProductPlan and find product market fit very early. And it cost us less than $1,000 to do that. Okay, so let's get a definition first of what product market fit is. This is my definition. I think you'll see a lot of different ways of defining what product market fit is, but my definition is a product that solves a problem. So at the core, it has to solve a big problem, and a problem that's high enough on your customer's priority list. And it needs to be for a defined market segment. I've talked with a lot of entrepreneurs who are building products, and they say things like, well, anyone can use this. And for me, I think that is a recipe for a product that is weak. I feel that a product needs to solve a very big problem for a distinct market segment. And then finally, it needs to be sold in a repeatable way or used in a repeatable way if you have a freemium model or some model where the customers don't actually pay for the software. But it needs to be something that you can define early on as being a repeatable method. And I'll talk about some techniques for finding that repeatable way of selling products. So my process for finding product market fit is this. I usually start with the end in mind. And you can begin with the end in mind in a lot of different ways. I've heard of companies starting with a press release. So you start with the PR or the press release that you want at the very beginning, and you write that ahead of time, and that will inform what you build or what you want to validate. And for me, for starting ProductPlan, my co-founder and I, we love the outdoors. We love to paddleboard. We live right next to the ocean in California. And so this is a picture of our paddleboards that we used back in 2012 and 2013 when we were figuring out what kind of company do we want to start? What kind of product do we want to build? And so we first agreed on our why. Why are we doing this in the first place? And we knew that we wanted to build products for product managers. And both my co-founder, Greg, and I are very, very passionate about building great products. He's a product person as well. And so we started a process of validating ideas to discover the best problem to solve. And we got alignment in the beginning about what our why was and what kind of company we wanted to build and the values that we wanted that company to have. And in general, we followed this process, which is we first validate and then we pre-sell and then we build. And most companies don't do this process. Most companies go through a build, try to sell it, realize it doesn't sell as well as you thought, and then go back to the drawing board and continue that iterative process. So I think many of you might have heard of the lean startup model, which somewhat follows that format, where you first build something and then you learn and then you iterate. And in my opinion, it's expensive. It's expensive to get to market with something that you have not validated to begin with, because you'll wind up wasting cycles, development cycles, resources, and so on, working on something and trying to find the fit. And in my experience with building several products, that this process of going through customer discovery and market validation and then building is the way to get to successful products. Another one of the processes and the steps along the way is to think of yourself not as a builder of products or as a seeker of products, but to rather be a seeker of pain. So in my mind, a product manager needs to first and foremost find product problems to solve. So you define a market and then you find problems in that market. So you be a seeker of pain. And you do that through a customer discovery process where you're interviewing customers to understand their pain. And we did that with product managers, where before we started writing any code, we talked to 30 product managers and had in-depth interviews about the pain that they're experiencing with roadmaps. And only then, once we found the pain, did we begin to think about what we could possibly build. And then what we did is we took our best guess. We said, we don't know for sure, but we think that visual product roadmap software that has these features will be able to solve your pain. And we set out to find what the value proposition of solving that pain was. And I think that's a really important thing for product managers to keep in mind is, what is your value proposition? And to me, a value proposition is about finding ways that you can save money for a customer, or you can save them time, or maybe you can make them money. Or in the case of consumer products, such as a dating application, you might be giving them some sort of lifestyle benefit. You know, you are solving pain with helping them meet their soulmate or the love of their life. And then there is also pain on the professional realm. As we were validating ProductPlan and figuring out what kind of software to build, we realized that product managers in their product planning meetings were presenting roadmaps, and they were spending hours trying to make those roadmaps look beautiful so that they can impress their stakeholders. And so that's a professional benefit, and that's part of the value proposition. And the value proposition for your products could be completely different, but I think it's important to understand the value of solving pain. Okay, and then what you do is you write down what you think your value proposition is. And this is before you begin development. You write down, what is the value proposition? What are the top 5 or so features that you could build that solves it? It's also useful to describe what is not being built to customers. I think that's important. Write down your hypothesis of how you would possibly acquire customers. And for those that are in early stage companies, this is important. And then as well for startups, the revenue model, just your best guess of what you think the revenue model is. And you could document this in a number of ways. And this is an example of what we did very early on at ProductPlan, where we used something called the business model canvas to start documenting our hypothesis of the value proposition, the revenue model, the cost structure, customer acquisition model, and so on. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Business Model Canvas, you can go to businessmodelgeneration.com and download one of these canvases to help create your hypothesis. And then after you create your hypothesis, you go through a process of customer discovery. And this is where you begin asking open-ended questions. And in my experience, these open-ended questions are the only way to discover pain, to discover the truth. Because what it does is it leads you down a path of curiosity and asking more questions. And it's the additional follow-on questions that you ask a customer that can give you insights that you wouldn't have discovered otherwise. A lot of product managers and entrepreneurs, they decide they want to do a survey. So they'll go out and they survey customers, and they come up with a limited set of closed-ended survey questions. And in my experience, that can be valuable, especially for later stage products. But in the early days, you still don't know the right questions to ask. And so this open-ended question process, I think, is very important for product managers to practice. And then once you find a problem, the next stage is to confirm the problem. And this is an actual slide that we used in the early stages of ProductPlan back in 2013. And we told them what we think their problem is. And it was only when we had them nodding in these meetings saying, yes, actually, that's my problem, did we then move on to the next stage, which is validate what I call the minimum sellable product. I think many of you might have heard of the minimum viable product. I like to think about the minimum sellable product, the product that you could potentially sell that will solve a And this minimum sellable product, I think, has to have a combination of features. And I think this is really important. You don't want to go to market with something that you truly think is the minimum, because what you'll wind up doing is creating a market or a product in a market that doesn't stand out, creating a product that simply doesn't resonate in the market, that is weak. And so I think that a minimum sellable product needs to have some core features that solve the problem really well, something that helps you compete in the market, something that creates delight in customers, and then it has to have one or more excitement features that the customers didn't even know they wanted. And these are the features that sometimes are very easy to build and that differentiate you from the competition in some way. So for us, we were very early in the market for product roadmap software. And then one of the things that differentiated us that competitors did not have was a visual drag and drop interface. So it's very easy to, on the fly, when you're in a planning meeting, to simply shift items by dragging and dropping them. So no need to open up consoles and dialog boxes and shift dates and so on. You could just pick it up and move it. And that had a lot of excitement for customers at the time. And when you're going through this process of validating the minimum sellable product, it does not need to look pretty. Again, this is an actual screenshot from our validation where we wanted to give them an idea of what visual product roadmap software looks like. And we did this just a mock-up in Keynote. And so the way that it looks isn't as important as the concept that it gets across. Now, of course, later on in the process, we were developing high fidelity prototypes. We were very concerned about the UI and making sure that it created delight, making sure that the customer journey was really great and dialed in, making sure that our buttons were, the right buttons and so on. But at the very early stage, you still don't know for sure if you have a product that will resonate in the market. And so why spend a lot of time creating really high definition prototypes when you don't know the answers in the beginning? So then as we go through this market validation process, will they buy? We actually captured a lot of this information in notes. We would interview customers. We would spend 45 minutes, 60 minutes in conversations with them, documenting their pain, documenting their reaction to our product, documenting the value proposition that they get, and really trying to find out, will they buy our software? And when we started hearing the right things, people asking us when they could buy this, people saying that it could potentially solve problems for them, then we said, okay, we're on the right track. Let's begin to build this. And then we said, we need to find how much to charge, and then how will customers find us? And so we went through a process of testing acquisition. So we created a landing page, basically, and this is before we actually had a product, where we drove traffic to that landing page. And we had people enter their information for a free preview of this product. And it was those customers that signed up that we continued to interview them. And we said, we would really love your insights and your help in building this product and making it work for you. And many of those customers at that very early stage became our first customers. So they became our beta testers, and then they became our customers. And all of this, including the driving of traffic to a landing page, cost us less than $1,000. And that's when we said, let's build this. And today we have a thriving company, and we're continuing to hire even in this pandemic, and we're solving problems for thousands of product teams all over the world. And so the takeaway for me was that it's possible really early on to find product market fit even before you scale. And there are indications of product market fit. And these are things like, we had a pipeline month over month. Our monthly recurring revenue was growing by 10%. We were getting sales without interacting with people. Customers were giving us feature requests. They were actually complaining about the software. And to me, that is gold. When customers care enough to provide feedback, to complain about bugs, then we know that we're on the right path, because I know that those problems are easy to solve. And this is a really brief presentation about the journey for ProductPlan and some of the other products that I've helped develop. And I wrote about it in a book that you can find on our website at ProductPlan. It's called Find Product Market Fit Faster. And I think we're going to open it up to some questions now. And I'm happy to answer them. And also I'll mention, feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, and feel free to reach out to me with questions after this. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jim. I'm sure that we have many questions. As we heard before we chatted a bit before the session, that there are people who are really looking into this question right now. So please feel free, if you know how to raise your hand with the functions of the Zoom, please do that. Then I will call you by the name. Otherwise, type in the chat or just turn on your camera and start speaking. and this will probably also work. So, questions. Jim, I asked you earlier also about your story with the product plan, and I think it might be interesting for other people to hear it as well. So how did you start the company, why, and what convinced you even to try?
Yeah. So in most of my career, I was in new product development and product management, and was part of some very successful companies, and had developed a process for building a company and launching products, and saw those products do very well, and have always, I'm very proud of what I've done, and I've always had this drive in me to build my own company. And to launch my own products, and so this was very much at my in my core when I set out to build a company in 2012, and so I met up with my co-founder, and we decided that we wanted to build a B2B SaaS company. We wanted it to have, we didn't want it to be a highly sales-driven company. We wanted to have a model that was repeatable, and we wanted to keep the company on the small side. So we decided deliberately, very early on, to bootstrap our company. And what that means, for those of you that aren't familiar with the term, is that we self-funded the company. And so we went against the trend of most software companies to take on capital early on through venture capital. And build the company that we controlled, build a company that we could, basically decide our destiny, and also work with people that we've worked with in the past that we really enjoy working with. And so that was part of our motivation. And both Greg and I were a little bit older. We're not in our, we're not in our 20s, obviously. And we said, we want a company that we have a lot of lifestyle balance, which is important to us. And I've always believed that small teams can do big things. I've always believed that small teams don't necessarily need to work 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week in order to provide and build something valuable, that you can use techniques like what I've just showed you here to work very smartly without burning out. And so,
how big is your team right now?
We're in the 50s right now, so we're approaching 60 employees at this time, and our team, especially during COVID, has continued to grow, and we're now hiring people in different time zones, and we moved very easily to a distributed work environment. I think that's partly because of the size of the company that we have, and also that we have a lot of our developers were in different parts of the United States, so we already have that distributed work culture, but it just works really well. We were very easily able to move in March to a distributed work format, and have continued to grow really nicely during this time, and I'm very grateful for that, because I know that a lot of companies are having a difficult time.
Yeah, you were lucky this way. There is some more questions about this story. So how did you decide to do a product specifically for product managers? You said you described what kind of company you wanted to do. How did you decide on the product?
Yeah, when my co-founder and I got together, we had several ideas, and we almost launched a healthcare software company because we found a problem in the market, and we said, this is a big market, and then we got to the point where we needed to make a decision, and we asked ourselves, certainly this is an opportunity, but are we passionate about the opportunity? And for me as an entrepreneur, being passionate about something is really key, because that's what's going to carry you through years and years, is that passion. And we decided that we weren't passionate about that, but what we were passionate about was product management and building products. And so that's what led us to reach out to some of our product management colleagues and begin that interview process. And the initial product that we had a hypothesis for wasn't product roadmap software. It was software to help with customer discovery, to help track customer interviews, to help help you understand what the value proposition was of the product that you were building. And so we started talking to product managers about that. And they said, yes, that's really interesting. And that is a problem I have. However, my bigger problem is product roadmaps. And so we heard that a couple of times from people and we said, that's interesting. Let's start asking them questions about product roadmaps and what is their process. And we started asking those open-ended questions about, how much time do you spend on them? How much pain are you in? And then that led us down the path of building product roadmap software.
Cool. Let's dive into more questions. So very interesting question from Shireen. I'm currently managing a product that is going through a transformation. Is this process the same? Do you have any advice there?
Yeah, I do. So a product that's going through transformation implies to me that the product is shifting for some reason. Maybe you're changing the features or maybe the way that it's messaged based on maybe changing conditions in the market or customer needs. And so it's hard for me to tell what that shift is. But I would suggest a couple of things. One is to make sure that you're really truly understanding the value proposition of what your product solves and what it could potentially solve. And then as you're going through this transformation process, making sure that stakeholders are on the same page about what's happening. I think that it's really critical to involve everyone in this process. And if you're shifting goals for the product, or you're shifting the path that you're going down, if you're shifting the KPIs and the metrics, make sure that everybody's on the same page. And you can do that through a variety of ways. If you're building a roadmap for this, making sure that you're having those one-on-one meetings or the product planning meetings with those stakeholders to really make sure that they're in alignment with what's happening. Because if there's a disconnect, that's going to cause pain later down the road.
There is a follow-up question from Shireen. Do you want to maybe ask it yourself, Shireen? It's longer and explains the specifics of the company.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, maybe Shireen will just ask herself. Let's see.
Okay, hi. Basically, I'm working in a B2B SaaS solution company where we're basically specializing in the media listening industry. And the thing is, our product is just mainly targeting different segments and different industries. So we're working with governments, with e-commerce companies, and like the spectrum is really diverse. And within like each segment, we have different, again, stakeholders. So at some point, we're working with marketing. In other cases, we're working with actual product managers and so on. So when it comes to the customer discovery, I'm having like very, very diverse kind of a customer base. And it's a bit challenging. How can I go like the best way to segment them or like do the proper customer discovery for my product?
Yeah, that's a great question and a real challenge. When I was part of the company prior to my current company, we were at it was a company called Appfolio. And the product today is primarily property management software. It's software to help property managers manage rental properties. And if when we first looked at the space, it was a very large space and with a lot of different personas within the space and a lot of different segments within the space. And so we decided that we're going to start doing validations in different market segments to try to find the most pain that we could solve easily. And we realized as we got into it that in the property management and real estate industry, it is huge. You have residential real estate, you have commercial real estate, you have student housing for students, you have mobile homes, and in the United States, people live in mobile homes. So the market was very large, and then within each one of these markets, you could still break them down further. So in the residential real estate market, you have very large property holders that are the investment trusts. You have commercial, you have large property managers that manage large multifamily apartment units. And then you have smaller residential property managers that might manage single family homes. So you could still segment it out that way. So you take this very large market and then you break it down and then you break it down further. And we discovered that even if we look at just this little segment here and start here, that's a lot of work. And that in itself could support an entire product and an entire company. And then even within that, there are multiple personas. So we have the owner of the property management company. We have the property manager who works for the owner. We have the tenant who rents the property, right? And so we need to further break that down. And so if we decided at the beginning to try to tackle this, we would have been in over our heads, and we wouldn't have been able to solve a problem deeply and really well. And so that would be my suggestion to you, is to figure out in your market what the segmentation is, and then begin to look in every one of these markets. I think you mentioned government and so on. So look at each one of these segments, because each one of these segments could be a starting point for you. Each one of these segments could potentially be a standalone company and a standalone product. So rather than trying to tackle all of it, begin your process by focusing on one area, understanding the problem, and then moving on to the next. And from there, you could probably pick the low-hanging fruit of where to start.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Jim. There are more questions. How did you make the decision that minimum sellable product was good enough to start investing and growing it?
Yeah, this is a tricky question, and it's something that there is never 100% certainty, and so you're basing your decision on subjective information, right? So people are giving you this feedback saying, yeah, I really like that product and I would buy that product because it will solve a problem for me, but they're not paying you yet for it, right? So you're basing your validation on information that is incomplete, and that's a very difficult position. And so my philosophy is that if you hear enough good things, you can, even if you take away a few that were maybe false positives, that you're still left with a certain number of people that would still buy your product. And once you get to that point, once you have maybe 80% certainty, then is the right time for you to take that leap of faith and say, okay, now is the time that we're going to build the product. But it's very difficult, and it requires a lot of conversation. And fortunately, when I've taken that leap of faith, we've interviewed for these other products. I interviewed 20 to 30 customers. By the time you get there, you start to begin to have a good feel for it, that when you interview your 31st, your 32nd, your 33rd person, you have a good feel for what they're going to say. And at that point, you have some confidence. But again, it's a very difficult decision. And if you waited for 100% certainty, somebody else will make the decision and somebody else will get into the market before you do. And so that's why there's this combination of doing good research versus your gut instinct about when to pull the trigger, when to make the decision, and just go for it. So it's a very fine line, and I wish I had a better answer than that.
Yeah, as many things in entrepreneurship, it is a fine line. Ooh, well, with this, let's dive a bit more into finding people for product discovery. So there are two questions which I think are connected. First one is, what is the best way to find potential or right people for product discovery? Another one, how would you narrow down your target group from an industry level? So again, how to identify this perfect, if they exist as the perfect group, I don't know, most suitable group.
Yeah. So if you're a product manager for an existing product, finding people to talk with shouldn't be difficult. Hopefully you have a relationship with some key customers, or someone that represents your ideal persona that you could speak with. But for early stage products, that's more difficult because you don't have customers. But I think about product discovery and customer discovery as almost like testing a sales model. And if you find it difficult to find customers to talk with at an early stage, that might be an early indication that you might have a problem selling it. And so the way that we found potential customers to speak with for ProductPlan, we took multiple angles. The first one was speaking with friendly people, people that I might have a relationship with as a product manager. But of course, we don't want to talk only with friendlies, because friendlies are going to give us false positives. Friendly people are going to say, oh, that's a great idea. I'm so excited for you, right? And that could lead you down a path of building something where, you know, it might be the wrong thing. And so what you want to do very early on is move past the friendlies. So you can ask for referrals. So at the end of a conversation, always ask, is there someone else that you think I could speak with? Is there someone else that you think could get value out of what I'm proposing that we build? And that will lead you to some other people. The other way is through LinkedIn. And for a B2B SaaS company, there's no better friend than LinkedIn. And today I get, I get in my inbox, my LinkedIn inbox, someone every day trying to sell me something. And very, very often those are untargeted, right? So somebody is asking, to meet with me about something that doesn't have any relevancy to what I'm doing today. But every once in a while, someone will reach out and they know my problem, right? And I'm much more likely to speak with someone who proposes to solve a problem that I have. And so that's where, as a product manager, you need to do your research, understand the persona, have a hypothesis of what problem you want to solve, and then reach out to these people. Because what I find is that if I am doing my research and I've done my research about what problems I could solve, and I propose to solve that problem, someone will speak with me. And then the other angle that we took was launching this basically a fake website that was a landing page for a product that didn't yet exist. And we began to, because we were proposing to solve a problem, and we were doing it in a way that we used their language to talk about what problems we were solving. People signed up for it, and we were able to interview many of these people. So there are lots of ways of getting people to speak with, and it does start with understanding the problem that you're going to solve, and then highly targeting them.
Do you have some more practical tips if I know what my persona is, but then how do I find these people? LinkedIn might be a solution, but say my target audience are people who don't use LinkedIn so much. Where would you recommend me going?
Yeah, I've also validated for other people consumer-based products. And there are lots of ways of finding people to validate consumer products. I did some validation of genealogy software. So validating software to help people with their ancestry. And it turns out that there are many Facebook groups that focus on genealogy. And so I can join a group and I can post a problem in that group, and I can ask people if they'd be willing to speak with me. And they are. I have occasionally, this is a long time ago, have stood outside of a Starbucks, and I will give people a $5 or $10 coffee card, gift card, to speak with me for a few minutes about something. And so there are ways of getting people to speak with you, and getting them to speak with you in open ways where you can ask open-ended questions. Now, I don't really recommend stalking people. So, like walking over to them in a Starbucks and saying, hey, will you speak with me for a few minutes? So you want to talk with people in a respectful way that doesn't violate their boundaries. But at the same time you need to take a little bit of a risk to get out there. And I found the best techniques are first approaching people in online ways. And for the most part, if you're doing this respectfully, if you're doing it with the idea that you are going to help solve a real problem for them, people will spend time with you. And so I found that to be very useful.
Good tips. Ever used Reddit for a similar purpose?
No, I've never used Reddit, but that's an interesting idea.
I never tried myself yet, but I'm guessing for some target audiences, this might be a good place to go.
Yeah, yeah. I think being highly targeted is good, and Reddit allows you to be highly targeted. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's see. Are there some more questions? I'm very curious about the people like Carolyn today who were thinking of certain idea. If this talk so far gave some additional inputs, how to approach this. Carolyn, if you feel like sharing with us, that would be very interesting. And anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I found it extremely interesting. And one of the things that I was struggling with, which was hence my question, Jim, so very much, is like how to find the people that you could do the product discovery with, because I feel pretty confident, well, confident, we haven't done it yet, but the rest of the process, and obviously you do trial and error, but it's kind of finding the people that you can interview and talk to, and it was a really good note, you know, where you can find them, but also don't just talk to friendlies, don't just talk to people that would tell you what they think you want to hear. So that's really good. And asking for referrals, like when you've interviewed somebody, because I think you're right, people generally want to help. So that was really good. Really good.
The other tip that I have is, as part of the process, to make sure that you're speaking with an economic buyer. This is especially true in B2B products. It's very possible that you could find people who would be users of the product, but that may be different than the economic buyer. And at the end of the day, you're not selling to the users. Certainly your users need to be delighted with your software or your product. But if they're not the economic buyer, then you might be asking the wrong questions. And so I've always found that finding the economic buyer, really understanding their purchase decision process, understanding how they will pay for it, understanding budget constraints, and that will lead you down a path of building a better product.
Thank you. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Great. So a lot of good points were covered. Apparently people are full with insights right now. They don't have any more questions. So with this, I will lead us to the end of the streaming part, but I invite everyone in Zoom to stay a bit longer because we will have an informal interaction. If you are not in Zoom, then you're welcome to join. There will be a link in the chat on YouTube right now that you can join us in Zoom for a bit of networking and further interaction. Thank you all for watching us on the streaming. Join our next events. You can find them on the meetup at Product Management People. You will find our page with all the future upcoming events. Join our chat. I saw a couple of people already joined. Very good. Happy to see you there. Others are also welcome to join the chat. You can find it at Get Product People. And if you liked what you saw today and you want to support us on a regular basis to keep hosting these events in a nice way, please find us on Patreon, Product People. Thank you all. And with this, I am going to stop the streaming.